There's always a man, there's always a city, there's always a lighthouse.
Now would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a...
Let's go out to play, Daddy.
Go back to the Sodom from which you came!
It's time to finish this.
Catch!
That'll do. Elizabeth!
First, we want to start with Star Wars Battlefront. Oddly enough, we haven't really done much on it since like it released last year, or around that time at least. And you've kind of been, you and Aaron maybe have been two of the people in the office, Rob, that kind of have been coming back to it with the DLC.
Yeah, each time around, just kind of touching on what's new, what's changed. This time around, I go back and forth with Battlefront. We've all played it, I'm sure. Like, as a Star Wars fan, like you have these awe moments and you appreciate the visuals and the sound effects and all that stuff. And, it's all done really well. But then you just start getting frustrated along the way. And that's where I'm kind of at with this DLC. But it's been pretty cool. I think it's a neat little package so far.
Does it just give you more of those sort of like awe moments or like the nostalgia stuff? I mean, is that kind of what this game, that sounds like that's pretty much all it can rely upon. I haven't played any of the DLC, but I imagine like getting more of that is probably...
Yeah, and that's where, it's exactly that. And that's where the run I go with this stuff, it kind of ends, where it's like, I feel like I've seen all the spectacle of it, and then it kind of just dries out because the gameplay is just not that great. I mean, I'm sure there's a fan base who appreciate it, and clearly because there are a lot of people who are pretty good at that game. But yeah, this time around it's Death Star. So there's like 3 game modes or maps, so to speak, and they all kind of transition into each other. Mm-hmm. The first being the rebels attack a Star Destroyer outside of the Death Star. And then the next is on the Death Star, the rebels attack, or they're trying to get to it. Like it's like a what's the game mode? It's basically a moving spawn point where the rebels are trying to get R2-D2 off the Death Star and onto this rebel transport because he has the Death Star plans. So like the movie. And then the next is just a Death Star trench run. And I feel mixed on each one of those. They also added new heroes. There's always 2 in each one for each side, Imperial Rebel. This one is Bosk, the bounty hunter.
Wait, do you know what alien race he is? I always forget.
I don't know.
He's not like, because Greedo is what, a Rhodesian? Rhodian, sorry. Rhodesian's like yeah.
And then the other one being Chewbacca himself, which I haven't been able to play yet. But they have some pretty, they always have interesting kind of perks and abilities. Chewbacca has one where I guess where he just goes his typical Chewbacca roar, and then surrounding allies near you get beefed up, just based on his fantastic
his Wookiee
audio. Yeah,
I'm terrible at those, so I'm thinking we could try to do it. It looks like Bosk has some sort of thermal vision.
I think you should try to do it.
No, that I'm never gonna top.
Not bad,
that.
Rob.
That was more of a Tusken Raider, but I'll never top that anyway. But okay, so these, I mean, it's the Death Star interior, right? So I would assume, unless there are big hangars you come into, it's kind of claustrophobic, confined, like close quarters. Or
that's why I don't really like the that stage, just because it's so hard. Like you're just constantly dying, or at least I am, and I think everyone is. I mean, it's tough. Yeah, it's really close quarters. It makes you realize that the Death Star with all those steep, no railing like drops, how funny they are with jetpacks or some of the it's like the hot item in that game. So people were jumping up and then hitting the ceiling and then falling down these things,
just breaking their neck.
Right. It's tough in these corridors, but it's again the spectacle value is really cool. So you'll see like what I imagine to be a rendition of the control room where the Death Star has all those scenes. Another one is I think it starts off with R2-D2 near the prison area where Leia is. However, you walk down that famous hallway and it just goes. It's not connected to anything. It just actually literally just goes off boundaries. So
yeah.
When I first started off, I saw about 8 guys running down there and then all turning back because there's nothing. There's nothing to go towards.
Get to that gap where Luke does the grappling hook across it, and then Leia like hugs him so tight that she's like inside his chest.
I didn't see that. No, you don't see that. You see some hangars, and you see definitely the same area where Obi-Wan turns down the shields.
Mm-hmm. Oh, spoiler. I want to ask you guys a question collectively. Like, so seeing all this stuff is great, and this is like the first time we've seen sort of like the classic Star Wars movies represented in whatever next gen, right? Like these consoles, they can only whip this stuff out once in a while before it starts to feel like Yeah, we've seen this recently. Do you guys think that the fact that they've kind of executed on this in such a middling average way means that, well, maybe this is the best we're going to get this generation, and that kind of sucks? Because, hell, imagine like a really good recreation of this stuff this gen. They're not going to try to do it again immediately following this. Does it feel like a missed opportunity? Because I kind of feel that way.
With Star Wars specifically?
Yes.
game.
Yeah. Well, like tackling the classic movies, like showing these scenes that we all know and love and doing it in a way that is just not quite delivering that, like, wow, like it's all caveated by the things that make this game kind of a...
Sure. I mean, like, I reviewed this last year, and that was my thing. It was like the spectacle is there for sure, and it's there, especially if you're a Star Wars fan, you're kind of screaming over Hoth in a snowspeeder, but there wasn't much substance to the combat. In terms of like making use of the Star Wars license and whatnot, I don't think we've seen anything spectacular recently at all. I know like the Old Republic people gush about, but I mean, that's like, that's not like the classic Star Wars movies. I don't know, like the studio's working on stuff right now. You have people at EA that are working on it, like Amy Hennig's studio's working on that one. Kind of wondering what that's going to be like, but Battlefront has always been middling to me at best. I haven't been playing the DLC. I think that was the overarching question I wanted to ask you. Is any of it worth coming back for? Is it like lending more vitality to the game?
Yeah, like so that interior Death Star stuff with the actual infantry combat. Again, yeah, it's just a clusterfuck. Like I don't even know where I'm going for the most part. Like I see a R2D2 icon rolling around, yet where enemies are attacking you from, you never gauge. Like the spawning is a little poor, where I never gauge what is the layout of this map. But then, touching on like the Death Star mode, the trench run mode, that was actually pretty cool. Despite the controls of these ships are awful, in my opinion. Like just awful. I am so frustrated with how they handled it, and that you can't do actual 1-to-1 barrel rolls like you do.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's really dumb. It's like a pan. So like I can do a flip, and the next thing I know, I'm upside down, and then it's weird. And then the controls switch. It's like, okay, well you got to straighten out, bud. So like your turning then equates to like spinning back around, but it ends up making you crash. However, this the trench run was really interesting in that the rebels basically have to hit checkpoints in order to have the ultimate goal of doing the classic Luke Skywalker shooting photon torpedoes down the exhaust. But what was neat is and this is where my worry was that, okay, let's get real. The trench run, it's kind of a boring layout, right? It's just a trench run. What obstacles are there other than like a slight box?
It's like a boring Star Fox 64 level.
But what they did is they actually included, very reminiscent of the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi, some actual tunnels. And one area in the tunnel is straight up the exact representation of Return of the Jedi Death Star 2, where the Millennium Falcon loses its radar dish.
Yeah.
Where it's going through. So I'm a TIE Interceptor, and I'm chasing the Luke. So every so often you are picked to be as a rebel Luke Skywalker, and you have to basically be the X-Wing, and everyone on the map shows you. So anyways, you get these really intense chases where you're going through these tunnels, just like in Return of the Jedi. And it's like the X-Wing goes in, and it's like 8 TIE fighters swarming in behind him and just crashing, because it's really tough to like get this chase down, and a lot of obstacles in the way. That was pretty neat. I think touching back what you said, Peter, I think they have been able to tap into that spectacle in an appropriate manner. Like seeing that exact representation, it looks really great of that one moment in the second Death Star was really neat. And I felt like I was really doing, you want to be in that movie, right? And I had that for a few seconds, but then the controls just go whack, and I can't have fun. That's the barrier, is like the flying is so poor that I just can't enjoy it.
Yeah, it just feels like those moments are stymied by just the kind of okay game beneath it, right? When these things kind of deserve something better, like more attention paid to the specific moment at hand, like to get that much more focus on it, beyond just putting you there, beyond just giving you a means to interact with it. Like really figure out, okay, what made this special? Let's tailor everything to make that feel special for someone playing it, versus cramming it into another game.
It always felt very much like an ode to Star Wars rather than a good Star Wars game in itself.
Yeah.
So it's like a toy box for Star Wars fans almost, and that's why I appreciate it, and that's why I think it's decent. But I just, every time I get in, I play a match, and then I'm just bored. I mean, I say like in the present tense, but I haven't played in 8 months or so.
Sure.
But I was curious whether this DLC was anything that like was building on the game's foundation, or whether it was just giving you more of what I thought was a middling game to begin with.
Yeah.
But anyway, cool. So that is Star Wars Battlefront. The newest DLC is the Death Star. There's one coming out early next year. Rogue One Scarif. Do you know anything about that?
A little bit, yeah. That sounds pretty intriguing and perfectly lines up with Rogue One. So I'm not sure what planet Scarif is, but I do know is that the heroes for that are Ben Middleton's character, the director Orson Krennic. Orson Krennic, and then you play Jyn Erso on the Rebel side. So that could be really neat. I mean, having the movie come out with that, it'd be cool to see what they do there. But again,
hopefully it's good.
Hopefully.
Who knows?
Cool.
Yeah. Well, you will be streaming that right after the lobby today, won't you?
That is right.
Awesome. So that is Star Wars Battlefront's newest DLC, the Death Star DLC. It's out now on PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
If you have the season pass. If you do not have the season pass, you have to wait 2 weeks, and then you can start getting in that.
Okay, cool. Let us know if you're going to pick it up in the comments below.